This video will have light gameplay spoilers for Echoes of Wisdom. The Legend of Zelda is a long and storied franchise. Of course, it's changed over its 38-year... Wait, is that right? Holy shit. But it's something core that has shifted. Something core to its design philosophy. Something core that we took for granted in the past formula that is almost unseen in today's games. And that is how you solve puzzles in the new Zelda games. I'm Ouroboros. Let's talk. First, let's cover how old Zelda went about puzzle solving. I'll use Skyward Sword as an example, but realistically, you can use any of the mainline games from the old formula, i.e. pre-Breath of the Wild. What used to happen was you would encounter an obstacle, whether it was in a dungeon or the overworld, that would require a very specific item. It was kind of like coming across a lock that only a single key could open. So you would either be able to unlock the door, or would have to come back later for when you found the right key, or in this case, an item. So maybe there's a switch for a door that you can't reach, but if you come back with the bow or the slingshot, you'd be able to get to it. This acted in a bit of a Metroidvania type way, especially if you were in the overworld. You would either consciously or subconsciously make a note of what you just encountered. Once you got the right item, that would trigger your memory, and you can go back to that previous roadblock to progress. It's a tried and true system that worked for literal decades, and for good reason. It's incredibly satisfying to finally understand how a dungeon works when you get the dungeon item, or come across a previously closed off area that you can now freely explore. This is how old Zelda would section off the world or dungeons. You were inherently limited in what you could explore and interact with based on your current arsenal. It's restrictive, sure, but it's an easy way to make you feel like you're progressing. However, you have to play by the game's rules. You aren't really carving out your own path through the puzzles. More so, you're following the path laid out by the developers. That's where Breath of the Wild changed everything. Nintendo did the exact opposite. They gave you all the tools you could ever need right off the bat. Then they constructed puzzles that had intended solutions, but you weren't constrained by the developer's intentions. Breath of the Wild started this trend, but Tears of the Kingdom and now Echoes of Wisdom take it one step further. The Ultra Hand is one of the most ingenious abilities in any game because it completely changes how you interact with the world. And that's mostly because now nearly everything can be interacted with. Nintendo absolutely knew this. They knew they had something special on their hands. Or rather, their Ultra Hands. I can't overstate just how incredible it is to create some kind of mechanical monstrosity that, by the grace of the gods, somehow solves a shrine. My Tears of the Kingdom review is titled A Playground for Creativity, and it's for good reason. Instead of crafting a carefully constructed set of levels, Nintendo basically just gave us a big sandbox and told us to go crazy. They were inspired by the crazy flying machines that people created in Breath of the Wild, and that's how we ended up with this. It's a big shift in design philosophy. Old Zelda is like reading a book by an award-winning author. New Zelda is like collaborating with that same author to write your own story. That's kind of the gist of New Zelda. Unless you're a challenge or speedrunner, everybody does the plateau and Sky Island roughly together. There may be some variations in the order and the method that you tackle the challenges, but it's close enough. Once you're done, pretty much all the restrictions are gone. It's like the author set you up with the characters and the world, and then told you to write the rest. I think we all knew that Tears of the Kingdom would be really similar to Breath of the Wild because, well, it's Breath of the Wild with a fresh new coat of paint. But what really made me recognize this change was playing through the first few dungeons of Echoes of Wisdom. I didn't know much about Echoes of Wisdom when I picked it up. I watched the reveal trailer and that was it. That's how I handle all games that I want to play. I strongly encourage everybody to go in blind in every game they play because it keeps all the magic alive. It's like you're a kid again, discovering all the characters and mechanics for the first time. But that's a video for another day. Echoes of Wisdom is kind of a Zelda game, kind of not. Really, I think it's a puzzle game more than anything, but it somehow merges the joy of playing through a linear puzzle game like Portal with the wonder of an open world game like Breath of the Wild. Much like a puzzle game, you've got all the tools at your disposal. However, unlike most puzzle games, there are so many different solutions. Even just the simple act of climbing up a cliff can go a dozen different ways. There are times when I'm in a dungeon and have an aha moment, and I sit there and think to myself, yeah, I'm so smart. And then there are other times when I'm in a dungeon and think, there's no way this is actually gonna work. And it does. Like 90% of the time, it works. And the other 10% is because I'm an idiot who doesn't know how this series works after playing it for well over 15 years. Like, take for instance this section where you've got these little zappy orby dudes. I imagine the intended goal was for you to carefully move through this side-scrolling section and avoid their attack range. But I, in my infinite wisdom, thought to myself, can I just kill them? So I looked through my options and sure enough, I had an echo of an enemy that was able to kill them. So I essentially just bypassed an entire challenge by brute forcing my way through. The wonderful thing about this shift in philosophy is that I never feel like I'm breaking the game when I do something like this. I'm not exploiting a bug or a glitch. I'm doing exactly what the developers intended me to do. I'm interacting with the tools that they give me in order to go from point A to point B. It's just that there's more than one path now. It's like using Google Maps, except there's a dozen different completely viable routes for you to get to your destination. I know there's a lot of discussion about which Zelda formula is better, open world or linear. I can definitely see the value of both. However, this style of puzzle solving, at least to me, is so infinitely more engaging and rewarding than the previous. I know fans of Egoraptor will agree with me here. It just feels so much more malleable, like the game is just begging you to mold it. It's the same reason why people love sequence breaking in Metroidvania so much. It becomes a question of whether you are capable of overcoming a challenge, rather than the game allowing you to progress forward. I'll concede that I do miss the more tightly designed dungeons that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom were lacking. Even though I loved the Divine Beasts, they were just too short and lacked a feeling of progression. But the shrines, and especially the new dungeons and puzzles and Echoes of Wisdom, are just phenomenal. Zelda has changed in a lot of ways in its 38-year history. There's plenty of room for debate about what the right formula for the series is, but there's one thing I'm certain of. I love the new direction that Nintendo has taken in Zelda's puzzles. Thanks for watching.